Hello everyone, and welcome. It has been a while since my last video, and I've been doing a lot of traveling this summer. During that time, I'd like to share my travels with you. Thankfully, I have been gathering a lot of materials for the places that I have been traveling during this time. And I'll share them in individual videos per place. So, I'll be quite busy this summer, these next couple of weeks, with new places for us to explore together. Today, as I hope is obvious, we will be exploring one of the best sites, landmarks, tourist attractions in the United States, which I only visited for the first time this summer, and that is Yosemite National Park. Yosemite is in California. It is one of 9 national parks in the state. As of 2013, I believe, 9 national parks, the most of any state in the US. And it is one of the oldest of the national parks, first protected in 1890. Yosemite is in the High Sierra, or the high area of the Sierra Nevada mountains. And it protects a significant amount of land in the mountain area, as well as in lower lying areas that are some of the most popular in the park. Today I have with me 4 pieces of tourist information that we can go through. Let's start with the most iconic. And that is the classic National Park Service map. Here in the image that we see here, we have a view of the eastern Yosemite Valley. And we have a clear view of the icon, essentially, of the national park, which is Half Dome. Half Dome is a mountain at over 8,000 feet above sea level at its summit. And it's quite a striking sight to see. The photo in this, on the cover of this map, is likely from Glacier Point or Washburn Point at the rim of the valley that Half Dome is a part of. So quite stunning up close photo at near elevation. of the map, we get to see the full view of Yosemite Valley. Including the three brothers together. And we also have some descriptive information about the various biomes and features of the park. But what of the park itself? Let's look at a brief history of the area that is now Yosemite. Originally, like most of North America, it was settled by indigenous Americans. Many different peoples populated the area. But the primary players, primary peoples, primary nations, up to the point of Western influence, the arrival of European powers, were the Sierra Miwok, the Miwok people, and the Ahwahnee people. The Ahwahnee particularly found a home in this central area of the park, which is called Yosemite Valley. Despite its name, it is not the valley of the Yosemite River, as I first thought before actually researching the park. It is instead a valley of the Merced River, which flows from Merced Lake, which forms from a series of creeks that feed into the lake, into the valley beyond Half Dome, which we saw earlier, and down into a peaceful valley amid steep cliffs on either side. And after the Yosemite Valley, the Merced River flows west, eventually to the Pacific at San Francisco Bay. The name Yosemite comes from the name of the Ahwahnee people who lived there. They may notice that the Ahwahnee call themselves the Ahwahnee, which is why I have chosen to call them the Ahwahnee. So this Yosemite name comes from the Miwok. It comes from the Miwok because they had greater contact with the European first inhabitants of the area. The first European inhabitants, I should clarify. And when asked to describe the people who lived in the valley, the Miwok called them the Yosemite, meaning they are killers. So quite a violent original name to this area and to this park, but important to recall nonetheless. Fast forwarding a couple of decades, we get to the portion of history where the Yosemite Valley and the area around it came to be protected as a national park, which was somewhat of a novel idea in the late 1800s. During the late 1800s, well, starting in the mid 1800s and continuing on, there was a significant movement to get people back into nature, back into areas that had not yet been touched by the extent of human civilization as had been found in farmland and in city land. And for the Yosemite region, there were two key players in advocating for the protection of the park. Down in the southern area, around the entrance from Oakhurst and Fish Camp, we get to the town of Wawona, and nearby the Mariposa Grove, which is a grove of giant sequoia trees. Now, we'll hear more about sequoias when I talk about Sequoia National Park in the future. But suffice to say, a naturalist named Galen Clark was inspired by the majesty of the giant sequoias in the Mariposa Grove and worked within the public sphere of his influence up to and including talking with members of the United States Congress to advocate for the protection of the grove. Later, the naturalist John Muir also advocated for the protection of Yosemite Valley. John Muir had the fortune of working in the valley as a young man and had a lot of experience with the beauty and splendor and the various natural wonders that he viewed as needing to be protected from the encroachment of civilization and development, and overdevelopment, frankly. And so he used his influence to similarly work for the protection of the Yosemite Valley. But he also advocated for the protection of the rest of the High Sierra in the region surrounding. Thankfully, with their help and due to their campaigning, Yosemite became a national park, as I said, in 1890. And that included significant areas of the High Sierra. including the Wawona Road that connects Wawona to Chinquapin and up to Yosemite Valley. The branch off to Glacier Point, the Merced and Tuolumne Groves, and the Tuolumne Meadows up along this Tioga Road. Beyond that, the park extends quite a way eastward, down close to the divide and the crest of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Though it should be pointed out that the areas east of the mountains are also protected in national forests like the Inyo and the Humboldt Toiyabe and the Ansel Adams Wilderness. Ansel Adams is also an important figure to cover. His method of advocating for protection, both for Yosemite and for lands throughout the country, especially in the American West, was to photograph the natural beauty. Another last area to the north of Tuolumne Meadows is the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne River. Which is a quite striking valley to hike through, eventually leading to the meadows of the Tuolumne River, as it feeds into the most currently controversial area of the park, Hetch Hetchy. Hetch Hetchy is a reservoir that was created by the building of the O'Shaughnessy Dam, which dams up the Tuolumne River to create a natural reservoir and provide electricity for the communities of the Central Valley as far west as San Francisco. John Muir advocated against the creation of the dam and the reservoir, and there are still debates on whether or not to keep the dam in place when there are other sources of power for the cities of Sacramento and San Francisco. In terms of visiting the park, there are a number of places that are most common to visit. The most crucial, if I can recommend any, is the Yosemite Valley itself. It certainly is the most popular, and justifiably so. The river valley has a number of entrances. One from the south along Wawona Road, and two from the north. One slightly from the west, also along the Merced River from the town of Mariposa, and one more from the north via Tioga Road. The best entrance in terms of views is definitely the Warner Road way because of tunnel view. A spot along the road that gives a direct and impressive view of the valley, including as far as Half Down and North Down. From there, you pass by Bridalveil Fall, so named, I believe, because there was a couple that got married at the falls. Further along, you have Cathedral Beach and the bridge over to El Capitan. El Capitan is second to Half Dome, the most famous mountain in the park. It is essentially sheer cliff facing south on the valley that is famous for a number of climbs straight up the rock face. As the decades of the 20th and 21st centuries have marched on, those climbs have become more daring, including limited equipment to no equipment to solo climbs, and the solo no equipment climb that is free solo. Absolutely bonkers from my perspective, but some people are just brave enough to do it. Further east, we get to Sentinel Beach and a view of the Three Brothers and a view of Sentinel Fall to the south. We get to Swinging Bridge, which used to swing back and forth as people were on it, but now no longer does, now that it's more secure. We have the Yosemite Valley Lodge, an older lodge for visitors to stay in. We have the hike around Yosemite Creek and Columbia Rock, which includes visiting Lower Yosemite Fall and Upper Yosemite Fall. The Lower Yosemite Fall is also accessible via a trail at and near ground level. Moving farther to the to the east, we get to the center of activity with the Visitor Center and Yosemite Village. At this point, I'm going to bring out our pocket trail map of Yosemite Valley, which has a little bit more of a zoomed in image of the central area. So here we have Lower Yosemite Fall, as we just said, accessible at near the valley floor. We have the Welcome Center here. We have the kitchen, a post office, a visitor center, the medical clinic. Attached to the Welcome Center is a general food store. There is a gallery dedicated to the work of Ansel Adams, which also doubles as a store for both Ansel Adams art as well as art from the Yosemite area and indigenous artists from around the country. There's the Exploration Center, which also has the bookstore and a theater. There's the museum and Indian village, displaying information about life before the advent of Europeans. And finally, the cemetery and the library. Further to the east, not on the valley floor, but on the valley rim, we have Glacier Point, which is a phenomenal view of the Eastern Valley, as we already saw on the other side of this map. And we get into Curry Village, which has its own restaurants, stores for food and supplies, but which largely serves as a gateway to the campgrounds at the far eastern end of the valley. There is a nature and arts center at Happy Isle. And at the far eastern end of the valley, there are two main branch points for hiking. To the north, there is Mirror Lake, which offers reflective views of North Dome and Half Dome, as well as the other mountains on the northeast side. And to the south, there is the Mist Trail, which is a trail that offers a difficult hike, I will say, and during spring and early summer, a quite slippery hike up to Vernal Fall and Nevada Fall. These are two waterfalls on the Merced River. They're powerful waterfalls during the spring and early summer. Though because of the fluctuations of the Merced River, they can also dry out in late summer and fall. The trail is called the Mist Trail primarily because of the amount of mist that comes off of Vernal Fall. So much so that the granite steps up to the top of Vernal Fall can be slippery and can be rather treacherous going down. In fact, when my family visited this past summer, we did not go down the same way that we came up, instead choosing to go on the John Muir Trail. The Nevada Fall, while farther away, is also impressive and a definite challenge to get to, as another mile above Vernal Fall. And although this trail has pretty consistent elevation gain, so it is not for the faint of heart. One last thing to note is the Awani, which is another hotel, a more recent hotel, at the eastern portion of what you could consider the central busy area of Yosemite Valley. And lastly, there is the hike to Half Dome, which does start on the Mist Trail and continues past Nevada Fall, looping around to get to the summit of Half Dome. Summiting Half Dome does take a permit, which does work on a lottery system, though if you are able to get that lottery system, you will be able to park at a closer parking lot. Which, considering the difficulty of the hike, makes sense. In this less zoomed out version of the valley, you can also see the complete trail up to Half Dome, including the Little Yosemite Valley Ranger Station. Something that this ranger station is noting that is true for many areas of the park is the fact that the park is seasonal. A lot of trails, particularly the more treacherous ones, can be closed during the winter. Generally, services are available from May to September. Beyond then, fewer people visit the park in general. The weather at the park gets worse, and so services can be limited or non-existent in places. In addition to services, roads may be closed during the winter. This includes the road from Wawona to Glacier Point, which is only open from May to November. Similarly, the Tioga Road connecting the northern area of the park from west to east is also closed, except for May to November. This is especially important because of how treacherous, relatively, the downhills of the Tioga Road can be. All of these roads are rather bendy, except for the Yosemite Valley roads. And in general, the road along the Merced River to the west, along El Portal Road, though it still bends as needed by the river. Looking along the Tioga Road, there are a number of trails along the northern portion of the park. As far west as the Big Oak Flat entrance, the Merced Grove and Tuolumne Groves, which we mentioned earlier, Crane Flat, which has a gas station, another grocery store, and a campground, Tamarack Flat, White Wolf, which has a lodge and a campground. Yosemite Creek, which goes all the way down to Yosemite Falls. And Porcupine Creek, which connects both to the Mirror Lake, northeastern portion of the valley, as well as to North Down on the rim of the valley. Note that the backs of these pocket maps also contain descriptions of the hikes. So we can see descriptions of doing Lower Yosemite Fall, Mirror Lake, the full Yosemite Falls Trail, the Mist Trail to Nevada Fall, along Tioga Road, May Lake, Lukens Lake, Hardin Lake, and North Down. You can see some highlighting from the guides that gave us these maps. In general, the rangers at the park were nothing but helpful, very willing to share their knowledge. They will be quite busy during peak times as they are dealing with a significant number of people, but they are more than eager to share their information. So definitely trust them when they say that certain hikes and activities will take a certain amount of time. Most hikes that take you away from the valley floor will be half-day hikes at minimum, if not longer. Lastly, a guide that many parks do, though not all, is have a sort of newspaper, newsletter style guide to the park, which has information about the various rules, regulations, and things to watch out for. The big thing to note that is true for 2024 and will likely be true for the foreseeable future is the need for a permit to enter the park. So to visit the park from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m., or really to enter the park, you must have a permit that costs $2 and is available online. That should be done on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays from April to June and from mid-August to October. And that is necessary every day from July to mid-August. This is on top of the fee that you have to pay to enter the park as a normal entrant to the park. There are a number of shuttles that go around the park, including to and from the central Yosemite Valley area, and Particularly, the most popular one that I was able to know about was the shuttle to Glacier Point, which runs during the time that Glacier Point is open and takes around 4 to 5 hours to complete, because it is quite a windy road and you definitely want to spend some time at Glacier Point if you visit. There are also lists of services that each visitor center and each village has, including Yosemite Village, Curry Village, the Valley Lodge, the Owani, Mariposa Grove, and Wawona. In addition to the tour bus, tour shuttle to Glacier Point, there are also a number of other shuttles and buses around the area. Within the Yosemite Valley, there are typically 2 shuttles, one that goes throughout the most of the valley up to El Capitan, and one that goes strictly through the East Valley as far as the visitor center and the housekeeping camp. During the time that my family was there, only the Valley-wide shuttle was running. In addition, there are paid shuttles, so these shuttles are free. Paid shuttles to visit various places going to and from Yosemite Valley. We talked about Glacier Point. There is also a shuttle from Yosemite Valley to Fresno, as far south as Fresno, which is around 2.5 to 3 hours. A shuttle to Merced and Mariposa, one to Sonora, one to Tuolumne Meadows, and one to Mammoth Lakes on the far side of the Sierra. There's also a free shuttle at Mariposa Grove, which services the Grove and allows visitors to go up to the Grove without having to hike there, though that is an option. Of note, going to Glacier Point and Tuolumne Meadows, those shuttles are booked through the national park, and the shuttles to Sonora, Mariposa Merced, Fresno, and Mammoth Lakes are through YARTS, the Yosemite Area Regional Transportation System. We have a list of the shuttle stops, those serviced by just the Valley-wide shuttle, and both the Valley-wide and the East Valley shuttles. Here we have a list of the programs and the events that happen at each location regularly. More information about preparing for hikes, including the shorter hikes, those that are half day, those that take a full day, as well as how far they are, their elevation gain, and where they can be gotten to from the shuttle stop. And lastly, we have another map of the East Yosemite Valley, again, which highlights how popular it is. With that, I believe I've exhausted a good portion of what I learned at Yosemite. If you have questions about planning your own trip to the park, or about the history of the park or the geography, please feel free to send them in the comment section. I'd be happy to answer them as best as I can, though I will admit in places that I didn't get to see, then I will be doing some research as well. Thank you all for watching, especially those of you who have made it all the way to the end. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.